Hello and welcome. By the time you are able to view this video, all Buddhist monks and Buddhist nuns around the world will have entered the Rains retreat for this year, the year of the Buddha 2568. And this is common throughout the Theravada tradition of Buddhism, that we make a determination to stay in the same place for the 3 months of the traditional monsoon season. Of course, it isn't necessarily the monsoon season where they are or where you are, but it is here. You can hear possibly it's raining right now, although not too heavily. However, in this part of Sri Lanka, the rainy season is coming to an end. It's the previous 3 months, including this month of July. So we've passed the full moon of July, the Uposita, Asala Puja, that I spoke about a little bit, entered the Rains retreat. I've made a determination, along with all of the other monks and nuns in the world, to stay in this one place, having declared our purity or sought forgiveness from our teachers or fellow Sangha members, and dedicate this time whilst in one place without any planned travelling or journeys other than that of we can still go on Pindapata each day, arms round, to collect food. This opportunity as our retreat time to meditate, focus more. For me, I wasn't planning to go anywhere anyway, and it doesn't make a lot of difference. But I reviewed the Vinaya notes, or the notes on the Vinaya rules, with regards to observation of this Vassa period, and noticed the one has to be in a lockable room. So this empty building, you may have seen in the last video, yes, behind me there was a new padlock on the door. I don't have cause to lock this room ordinarily, because I don't really even shut the doors. There's no need. It's pretty open, as you've probably seen. And there's nothing in here for anyone to take. And I'm not really in fear of anyone or anything. So the door remains open, but there is this facility, as it says so in the Vinaya rules, to lock it now, just in case. I suppose if I need to go out, no, there's no reason. The rain is just starting now, so it's quite fitting that I continue with looking at these comments and questions. I did make a note mentally of the time I began. I've seen my talks have gone on a little bit longer than normal. It is just because I enjoy talking to you. I don't get the opportunity to talk about the Dharma in such detail to anyone else. There are people who speak English here and in other countries where I've stayed, but it isn't necessarily their mother tongue, and indeed they don't have the opportunity, as you do with the wonders of YouTube, to either have subtitles or go back if you miss a bit, speed it up, slow it down, whatever you choose to do. If it helps you understand, this is good. So I can speak freely and comfortably without too much misinterpretation over simple words. I think the term for that is something like semantics, isn't it? And that brings me on to not the first comment, one of the comments I received over just that. Some words and their meanings. In fact, I'll talk about that first. There were 2 comments, 2 words. Somebody doesn't like the word, and it's a justifiable comment. I'm not criticizing the subscriber for making this comment. It's very valid. I have even made this same observation myself in the past. Someone was not keen on the word sama for right, as in my description of samasati, right mindfulness, sama samadhi, right meditation or right concentration. Even there is an example of a word we're trying to avoid, translating a Pali word into. I said meditation rather than concentration because people aren't so keen on this idea of a forced concentration. And that is true. So I generalize with the word meditation. This commenter was not keen on the word sama, a translation of right, and preferred perhaps something like proper. But the problem with a word like proper is it doesn't have an opposite. The opposite of right is wrong. The opposite of proper is improper. So it's the same word, just with the negative prefix. Now, the very fact of the matter is, there is right view, right intention, right speech. There is a wrong view, there is the wrong intention, and there is wrong speech. Now, what is wrong with admitting that? Let's be honest. There's this tendency, especially in Buddhism, well, exclusively, I think, in Buddhism, to the expression in English is pussyfoot around. Tread very carefully about words. And I think a lot of these semantics, these confusions, these debates over the use of words in translation comes as a result of this fear of saying what is the truth. If there is right speech, there is obviously wrong speech. Now, one can say, yes, there's grey areas, it could be misinterpreted, but this is why. If you tell an absolute lie, no, if you tell a lie, it is a lie. If you tell the truth, it is the truth. The same can be said for the precepts. Now, I will get criticised for this, but I'm quite black and white in my understanding of nature, life, humanity, psychology, Buddhism, and its practice. There's a right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things, as taught to us by the Buddha. Now, one adapts accordingly, of course, but one shouldn't, with this pussyfooting around, this means treading very carefully, not to offend anybody, take away the important meaning of the word. So the next comment from the subscriber was on the use of the word suffering for the word, Pali word, dukkha. Well, dukkha, I actually translate not as suffering usually, but of dissatisfaction. I'm guilty, therefore, of softening the blow, and I shouldn't. The Buddha taught, some itchiness going on. The Buddha taught suffering and the end of suffering. The subscriber writing liked a translation of friction. Well, friction is resistance. In fact, that's a different, entirely different thing. It's resistance to something happening. Dukkha is actually, the literal translation is off-center. It comes actually from the way its meaning comes about is from the hub of a wheel. If it's slightly off-center, the wheel would travel along in a wobbly fashion. But this isn't so much resistance as it would be with a brake applying friction to the rim of the wheel. It is wobbling, it's uncomfortable, and therefore unsatisfactory. That is the meaning of dukkha. But what's wrong with using the word suffering? It's a good word. We want to be free from suffering in this lifetime. That's the goal. We don't want to be free from friction. You know, that's going to come about. We will have less friction, less resistance once we have eradicated the next word that's so often disliked. I've heard this said by many. Disliked is defilements, the impurities of the mind. In Pali, kilesas, and they are greed, hatred, delusion. In Pali, lobha, moha, dosa. No, lobha, dosa, moha. But greed, hatred and delusion are the impurities of our mind that cause the wanting what we don't have, the not wanting what we have, the hatred, greed, hatred. And delusion is knowing the truth, having the information, but thinking we know better, using it inappropriately. Now this is an impurity of it's unwholesome mind states, or a bad state of mind, as opposed to wholesome mind states or good states of minds. So a brilliant word to describe these kilesas, these impurities of mind, is just that. Defilements. This is what they are. So I'm not one to pussyfoot around, as you can probably tell, with a view to keeping it simple. And then there is a lot less confusion and debate. So right mindfulness is just that. Wrong mindfulness is perhaps, because this is quite a difficult one to interpret in a black and white way, right and wrong. But say, with a combination of mindfulness, samasati, and samasamadhi, when this cat, she's just up there, I'm sure she'll visit soon, she's sitting on her newly this cat, I think, has made a determination to sit on the shelf in this bathroom for the vasa, because that's more or less where she stays now. But when she wants to, which I tried to stop her doing, at least in view of myself, but if she's got something in mind she wants to catch, very mindfully she is observing all that's going on and getting ready to pounce and starting to concentrate. But this isn't samasati, right mindfulness. This isn't right concentration. It is mindfulness, it is concentration, much like a sniper aiming his gun to assassinate somebody. Very, very mindfully positioning, breathing, taking everything into account about the body in order to not have any trigger tremor, everything smoothly operating, focused and concentrated. But because of the immorality behind this action, the wrong intention, it's not right intention, the wrong intention, it is to kill, it cannot be described as right mindfulness or right concentration. So enough on that, but back to the first comment, which kind of takes us a little bit to this, where somebody is doing all kinds of things and describing all those kinds of things that they're doing and enjoying doing. I mean, I'll tell you, they're an uber. In fact, these comments I'm talking about are coming from the same subscriber, so I thank you, subscriber, for your comments. But there are still many more to go, so I must, they're quite long. I've extracted the salient points. But they're describing their activities of being an Uber Eats delivery driver. I think that's where you use this taxi app to get food delivered. And that by practicing it mindfully, they seem to be enjoying some kind of meditative satisfaction. And I must say, yes, when I was practicing working, doing a pretty mindless job, actually it became quite complicated, but that aside, I enjoyed it so much more when I employed mindfulness in my work. Because firstly, I didn't make mistakes. But secondly, I appreciated and saw some of the wonders of the simple things we do. All of the complexities behind those simple things, really just witnessing the miracle of life itself. And that is an enjoyable feeling which can give you much elation. So he's referring to this as samadhi and levels of samadhi. Well, I did correct him as saying, well, this is actually samasati, this is right mindfulness. This isn't right samadhi. For samadhi to be attained, and actually another comment, I'm covering a few just talking here, so I glanced through them before I started speaking. Another comment was that samadhi cannot be described. Now, I don't think I actually specifically said that. Samadhi, of course, it can be described as varying degrees of absorption, or indeed, the word that isn't liked so much, right concentration, focus, because that's what it is. Focus or concentration on a single point, single meditation object, whether it be something like a light, if you're with your eyes open, or a sound, if you're listening, or indeed what is much preferable, and what actually the Buddha was using as a meditation object when he became enlightened, is observing the breath. It is always with you and can actually play a part in giving you access to right mindfulness throughout all of your daily activities, as well as the opportunity to enjoy levels of absorption at any given opportunity, standing in the bus queue, even sitting on the bus, whatever's going on around you, with your attention coming to the breath, you can enjoy some levels of absorption into that moment, in the here and now, bringing your conscious awareness back into the present moment, into the body, and experiencing mindfully, truthfully, all that is going on. And here is where you may experience that there is some suffering, some not wanting to be standing in the queue of the bus or sitting on the bus, some not wanting all the distractions and noises surrounding you. But this can be observed without judgment, dispassionately, just noted. And then your attention can come back to the breath, which remains consistent, but also an indication of your mental emotions and your physical well-being in terms of its depth, its coarseness, or its subtlety. As you begin to delve into the depths of absorbed samadhi, your breath will become very subtle, until eventually in the jhanas unnoticeable completely. So, moving on and using words for what they are, what they mean, and rather than sneaking around them, but trying not to cause any offence. I would love to know about the state of no mind. It happened to me back in 2017, and I still don't know how. I wasn't meditating back then. Okay, so I don't know what happened to you back then either. What's the question? You would love to know about the state of no mind. Well, I think watch the last talk. I think this comment came before that, where I'm talking about how to get meditation right. We're not looking to have no mind. This is perhaps another... Sunyata is emptiness, or having no thoughts, and also applies to the fact that you're having no real connection with bodily feelings. So bodily feelings, mental emotions, the two are interdependent. So with none of this going on, your mind is empty. But that's not no mind, it is just a mind with nothing to be concerned with, and therefore may feel that it is an absence of mind. But if you know this, this is not an absence of mind or mindlessness. It is still mindfulness, fully aware of this absence of content, let's say. But that is what it is you're roughly describing. We can really just call it peace, tranquility. Samatha is the Pali word for this peace and tranquility of mind, but perhaps without complete emptiness. The varying stages of samadhi or jhanas are where we will experience ultimately a state of emptiness, sunyata, this what you're calling no mind. But I think I'm understanding what you're referring to there. Okay. So someone again with reference to being an alcoholic, I missed this comment the other day, I think, being the result of their upbringing, their family, their mother and father are alcoholics, and lots of different other conditions, causes and conditions. And thinking that I'm referring to that as karma is possibly the misunderstanding here. Look, karma just means action, and the results of those actions is vipaka. These are the Pali words. So it's nothing more complicated than that. But it is your actions, not your mother's, not your father's. They are surrounding conditions, but you're not responsible for those. You are responsible for, to some extent as a child, you have no choice. But I use the analogy of walking into a bar. We have choice there. So it is our negative karma. By standing in there, if we have a problem with drink, we're likely to be influenced to drink again or something like that. But we don't have a lot of control over our birth conditions. Now, they could be all manner of different things or situations. They could be extremely lavish and wonderful or extreme poverty. Either way, this is external causes and conditions. Karma is referring to your own actions of body, speech and mind. And when you say why we even say based on causes and conditions, is because your future is based on the causes and conditions you create through your own karma. Your own actions of body, speech and mind will dictate what happens next. So when you get to an age where you can leave the family home, you get up, you leave. And you say this was a toxic environment to be in. Now I'm going to go and live somewhere and avoid what has led me to behave in the way I've been behaving, having realized this was not good. So that's really trying to just clear up again this misunderstanding, making it too complicated really. When we say karma, we mean actions. The results of those actions, results of that karma is vipaka in the Pali. We are in the chanting the heirs to our karma, responsible for our karma, ours, not other people's. So whatever someone's doing around you, however closely related, there could be some genetic influences. I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. But what I do know is what we do will affect what happens next. I think someone got a bit confused about Christianity and Buddhism. Am I a Christian or Buddhist? Well, of course, I'm a Buddhist monk. I'm a Buddhist. I may often refer to Christianity by way of comparison, because a lot of comments come in from Christians, which is fair enough, because they there are related teachings of basically being kind and good, and loving our neighbours. So, but that's really as far as it goes. So we'll just move on from there. May I ask if Chitta Nupassana meditation is being taught in your lineage? I'm asking this because the only teachers I have heard teaching it are from Mahasi Sayadaw's lineage. I wonder why this practice is not taught or talked about more often. Well, it is, because the 4 foundations of mindfulness are just that. We have mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, mindfulness of the phenomena. The third, mindfulness of the mind, is referred to as Chitta. But that is slightly confusing, because this is really relating to the thinking. In mindfulness, this is relating to the Chitta. And you're referring to Chitta Nupassana, so I think that might be some other tradition, but we would be more familiar with the word Chitta Nusati, which is mindfulness of mind, translated as. But it's not mindfulness of the mind as in the thinking brain, our thoughts. And I understand, and I could be wrong, that the Burmese training in meditation is a case of noting these mental emotions. So wanting, if you're wanting something, you say wanting. If you're liking something, liking. Hating. You make this noting process, which could, I suppose, be described as Chitta Nusati or Chitta Nupassana if you are observing the mind's thoughts. But mindfulness of the mind in the 4 foundations of mindfulness is mindfulness of the Chitta. The Chitta, which is that which knows, which is independent of feelings, which are physical feelings and mental emotions, and can incorporate judgment, thoughts, liking, disliking, and therefore the mechanics of the thinking brain, which is after all simply a computer. When that dies, it's gone, it stops thinking. When it loses its faculties, its capabilities, it may not even retain any intellectual knowledge it's learned. The Chitta, however, locationless outside of that, can still observe and know it is empty. It is what observes this, as you said earlier, someone said earlier, emptiness, empty mind, no mind, they described it as. But we don't observe specifically the Chitta, because the Chitta is the observer. You cannot observe it. It's as far as we can go within this realm of existence. Now, what happens in Nibbana may be something different, but in our day-to-day practice, we can only observe the thinking brain, this mind we refer to as mind. But I usually use the word mind as a translation for Chitta, rather than using the word soul, because soul implies given properties that continue from life to life. Whereas the Chitta inherits nothing from this life, takes nothing forward, other than the momentum in which its direction it's propelled by your karma, your actions of body, speech and mind. The causes and conditions you're creating to send it in a good way or a bad way, up or down, or nowhere at all. This is up to us, but only in the here and now. So, is it being taught in my lineage? Well, I consider my lineage as just that, coming from the teachings of the Buddha. I don't have day-to-day contact with my teachers or teachers in any particular lineage, you might say, or even tradition. There are selected teachers I always listen to their Dharma talks to, and I have a specific teacher, as we have to have, that we're dependent on throughout our lives as monks, because we need that assistance as they do from us. But generally speaking, I consider my teacher the Buddha, and the lineage of monks thereafter, his noble disciples there, the Arya Sangha, and then all of the monks ever since, whom have formed all of those different branches and lineages. It's like a family tree. He's right at the top, it comes all the way down and can be traced all the way back. But so I don't have a particular lineage or a particular one single teacher. But the Buddha, does he teach Chitta Nusati or Chitta Nupassana? Yeah, the four foundations. He teaches the Noble Eightfold Path, which leads directly to the understanding and the appreciation of the four foundations of mindfulness, which includes the Chitta Nusati. Is it true that Jesus visited India around 400 years after the Mahaparinibbana, or I would say Parinibbana, of the Buddha? Well, it is said so, but I don't know for sure. There is evidence if you go to northeast India. He would have been known, or is referred to there though, because he's well known in some parts of northeast India, as Isha. But that's a whole other story, and it's largely irrelevant. It's a very interesting story. Look it up, Google it, read the books, watch the videos if you have time to. But it's got really nothing to do with our practice as it is now, what we're doing here, what we're talking about. It's interesting though, and it is said so, so I wouldn't discount that idea at all. I too have mentioned it many times. I consider it to be a fact because I think it's easier to understand than the mythology behind other explanations for Jesus's afterlife, but also I think during his lifetime. He was after all absent for very many years, 16 years in fact. From the age of 14, his bar mitzvah, he disappears from history until he was 30 years old. So that's 16 years missing, by which time he had attained to being the, not arguably, I think I have to, you probably have to say, the world's most well-known, famous teacher ever in history in only 3 years. So by that account, he did something rather useful with that 16 years of absence. And I don't think what he was doing was just chopping up bits of wood and making tables and chairs with his dad. I think he went travelling on this Silk Road east to India, met some Arahant monks in the lineage of the Buddha, spent time with them and learned all he knew, and was able to then pass on, albeit a little adapted, as still happens to this day by so-called secular Buddhists or meditation teachers or practitioners who take bits and aspects of Buddhism and use it for in some ways commercial gain, in some ways just altruistic benefits for people, but only bits of Buddhism. Now, the Buddha's teachings, however, are holistic, and the Noble Eightfold Path, as I discussed recently in some detail, has to be taken as a whole if you wish to attain to arahantship yourself, to become free from suffering in this lifetime. So, no light incense. So someone's remarking that I don't like the incense at the morning chanting and puja. Well, I do, but it's off camera, because I have lit some incense just there, you might see, but if I have the incense there when I'm chanting, it's all right when meditating, but when I'm chanting, it can make me cough a little bit. It's difficult to chant properly. So I've taken to putting it a little further away, so it's just off camera. Now, I do like the incense, I do like the candles. We offer candles, incense and light. Also flowers is mentioned. That again is done off camera because I have to do that. I say have to do that because, to be honest, my own view of this is flowers, incense, candles, you know, it's nice. It really doesn't matter. If I didn't like incense, so what? Actually I do, all of the time. I like incense because they're nice. It is of no real significance to our practice. It's good intention, it has meaning, and if you listen to it when I chant the Sri Lankan version of the Pali chants, the devotional practices, included in there is that we're offering light, we're offering incense, we're offering flowers, and that this is meritorious, this is good, this is something good to be doing. But really, is it? It's just an action. It's not unwholesome. It's, I think, personally, karmically neutral. So if I do it, if I don't think it matters too much. But actually I do. And the flowers. The flowers is done when I'm on my Pindapata. There are particular people who like flowers to be offered at a particular Buddha Rupa in the centre of the city, well, the town that I end up in. So as I'm a monk and I'm passing and they give them to me for me to do that, I do it. But these practices, if they're not done, don't matter. They are, and they do, become very much rites and rituals. You'll see people all around here, furiously in the morning, picking the little flowers, which are in abundance. There's no problem with that, and very beautiful. The little white flowers, like jasmine. They look like jasmine, but I don't think they are. And other flowers, getting bags full. And they are absolutely focused on that. You could say focused like Sama Samadhi on picking flowers, to the extent it doesn't matter how close by I walk by them. As a monk in the morning on Pindapata, they would pay absolutely no attention to me whatsoever. Now these are devout Buddhists, so devoted to picking flowers, which they will then offer to their Buddha shrine at home or give to other people to offer to their own. Actually, I think they're quite protective and territorial over their own harvest crop of flowers. Certainly I've noted that that is the case as I'm passing and looking and wondering why they don't even perhaps wish to acknowledge a passing monk. It's not a problem, I don't mind, but I do wonder the intensity over such devotional practices and the absence of the actual practice of meditation. I won't comment on sila or wisdom because I don't know, but this could be considered meditative perhaps, but it isn't. It is picking flowers, it's an action. So yeah, it becomes a rite, a ritual. Now of course rites and rituals need to be abandoned before you will enter or attain to the first level of enlightenment. As well as personality view, Sakkaya Ditthi, we abandon rites and rituals and have a full understanding of the Four Noble Truths, but not understanding intellectually, actually unequivocally accept there is suffering, but know there is an end of suffering because we've identified the cause. This would be the first level of enlightenment. And in order to attain to that, one has to abandon rites and rituals. So maybe stop picking flowers and turn around, give one of those flowers to the passing monk. It's representative perhaps, he can't eat it, but it is your intention to offer something to the monk by way of something to keep him going for the next 24 hours. For myself, when that has happened, albeit only rarely, I've taken that flower all the way with me, all the way back, and I've put it on my shrine when I've returned, because it has been offered out of generosity, kindness. So I'm not going to let it get squashed or throw it away. I'll put it for as long as it will last with the Buddha there, because that was the donee, the person offering's intention of goodness. This is respecting dana. So I hope I've not offended anybody there. I didn't mean to. I'm just speaking of my observations living here in a devoutly Buddhist country. And I could be entirely wrong, but as I say, I don't get the opportunity to have these kind of depths of discussion with people face to face very often. Albeit very recently I did have some native Sri Lankan visitors come to see me who are in America now, and I'm always very happy to see them. They speak very good English, and we have very useful, well it is for me anyway, useful and interesting conversation. A little bit about Dharma, a little bit about life and living here in Sri Lanka and living there in America, the cultural differences, and that is also Dharma. It is useful. So this talking helps, hopefully it helps you as much as it helps me. And it is two-way. This is why I respond and we have these comments and these questions to talk about always in these future talks. And as it continues, I hope that will continue to grow also. Very short question. I gave a very long answer for a very short question there, didn't I? That was a question about friction. And that was about right or sama. Now, someone, same subscriber actually, you'll know who you are by now, is describing all kinds of visualizations during their deep levels of samadhi, absorption, in some rather fluent and poetic detail. So I'm not going to read it all, you know, even having met Buddhas and beautiful tunnels and all. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What it is this is still phenomena. Now, at the very best, this is just mental phenomena, even nimitta, seeing lights or visualizations. At the very best, this is imagination. At the very worst, it's dreaming, because you've gone to sleep, where you've lost mindfulness. If it's imagination, you must see it as that. It is phenomena created in your mind. If past Buddhas are making their presence known to you and you're seeing devas and you've attained to levels of arahantship, then I can't comment on that. This is an entirely different situation. And most people describing their meditation are not going to be describing such things. They wouldn't be watching this, listening to this, or asking me if they were arahants. There would be no need. They would have all the answers already. So I have to answer what is there a very long question with a very, very short answer, that this is just phenomena, mental phenomena. Note it, move on, back to observing the breath or your meditation object. Eventually, there will be no mental phenomena, as we have just spoken of in the sunyata situation of emptiness. Are you a Hinayana or Mahayana? What is your opinion about the Buddha? Okay, my opinion of the Buddha, I think, is plainly obvious. I've dedicated my life to the practice of the Buddha's teachings, renounced all worldly activities, family, wealth, and practice sila, samadhi, panya, moral virtue, meditation, and the development of the mind in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha. So need I elaborate on that in terms of an opinion? Of course, I could give all sorts of praise. Every morning I chant Itipiso Bhagava Araham, which is reflecting on the 9 qualities of the Buddha. If you wish to know my opinion of the Buddha, just take those words as what my opinion of the Buddha is. The other parts of the question, am I Hinayana or Mahayana? One would say these are Sanskrit terms, actually, from the Northern School, which is predominantly of the Mahayana or Vajrayana tradition. Hinayana is the lesser vehicle, lower vehicle. Mahayana is the bigger vehicle or higher vehicle. Vajrayana is the indestructible vehicle, These are Sanskrit terms. This is like north of India going up into the Himalayas, where you'll go to China and see Mahayana Buddhism, and in the Tibetan lands we had Tibetan and Vajrayana. But in the southern schools, Theravada is described by these northern schools as the Hinayana, in this perhaps also considered derogatory term, but I don't consider it such. I think it's okay. Theravada Buddhism, the Theravada school. So I am a Theravada Buddhist monk, in that I take just, yes, the basic teachings of the Buddha. And that is the description of Hinayana, the lesser teachings, just the word of the Buddha. Because where it went out northwards into the world, Buddhism, it picked up cultural influences from latter teachers that came along, latter arahants and monks like Padmasambhava and all kinds of famous, amazingly attained practitioners of their ages. And therefore became this Mahayana, the much higher, greater teaching. And then indestructible by the fact that it picked up all of these extra magical powers and created this Vajrayana tradition. But the lowest common denominator, bog standard, raw ingredient, basic Buddhism is my style, my preference, and we call it Theravada, which means way of the elders, the way that the Buddha's disciples practiced. They didn't call themselves Mahayana or Vajrayana, higher, bigger, better, indestructible. They were just listening to the word of the Buddha and doing as he said and seeing for themselves if it worked or not. And as the case may be, as is witnessed by us all today, 2,568 years later, it does work. Otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it now. And Theravada Buddhism, for me, is sufficient to have that understanding. That is what I am. That is my lineage. That is the way it is for me. I'm smiling because I'm very happy about that. And I think that is that has brought me to the end of the comments and questions for now. There will be more. I can say I'm sure there will be more, because before I even sat down to talk, when I quickly got these up, there were more. And I do appreciate not only you watching, but subscribing to this channel, and for making comments, observations, and always welcome as well corrections, criticisms of me, of what I say. I'm not, please offer your views, but I don't encourage too much comparison with other philosophies and religions, only because it can go on into a wormhole, a rabbit hole, or whatever, if you get too complex. So when people bring into the meditation topic of samadhi, sama samadhi, I'm talking in the context of Buddhism, and really even in specific terms in the context of Theravada Buddhism, but the core teachings of the Buddha run throughout all of those schools, both northern and southern. And I'm talking about what the Buddha taught as far as meditation is concerned. So whatever is taught previous to the Buddha and continues to be practiced to this day, however good it is, and I'm sure it is, from Pantalogy or the Vedic scripts or even Sadhguru, I don't know. Whatever you wish to practice yourself is entirely up to you. But I don't draw direct comparisons or incorporate those into what I discuss here, because there's no need to. That's one thing, this is another. And what this is something very simple. It has to be simple if I am doing it, because I realized that life was complicated, and I realized that it was only complicated because we make it so, and then found by uncomplicating things, taking them to bits and making life simple, one could find contentment far more easily. And from contentment, we derive happiness. Happiness is the symptom of contentment, just as sadness is the symptom of being discontent. So when we can be content with very little, we have all we need to be happy. And I hope you can find that happiness with very little also. On that note, I hope there's something useful here for you to take away, use in all of your daily activities, and share with others if you can. Thank you for watching. Until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.